session about to begin. Thank you so much, Washington. There's one there? Okay. I'll put this here. It's a good one. It's a good one. Yes. And I can confirm an all-around great person. Am I what? I'm not moderating. I'm just introducing them. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Sorry? Yeah, that's what I was Oh, no, not yet. I'm going to introduce them, and then they can come on. Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to Inkwell Beach. Today is our day of disruption. We're so excited to have you all here. Thank you so much to our panelists that just spoke on stage. I'm about to begin, introduce our next round of panelists. If everyone can please grab a seat, we are going to begin shortly. Everyone in the restaurant, on the floor, this is going to be a really great session. Please come have a seat, and we'll get things started. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Please come have a seat. We'll get started shortly. Hello, everyone. Just a reminder, lunch will not be served until 1:30. You have some time to come grab the panel beforehand, please. Everyone in the restaurant, please join us in front of the main stage. CCDC ambassadors, I see you. Please come join us in front of the main stage and grab somebody on your way.
Comedy space. So she is a stand-up comedian. I'm going to list this. Best-selling author, a producer, an actress, and a publisher. Yes. And she's not that old. So all of this has been like very much on her pushing through these barriers. You may know Two Dope Queens from HBO. Yep. You may know her essay collections. You may know her production company, Tiny Reparations. You may also know her books, You Can't Touch My Hair, and Please Don't Sit on My Bed in Your Outside Clothes, which spoke to me personally. I'm so glad you're here to talk about your journey, Phoebe.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, so let's get started. This is the Phoebe experience today. Whoa. Let's talk about your journey. How did you get started in comedy and entertainment, and what sparked you on that path?
Oh, man. So I used to love movies and TV shows when I was a kid. I was watched Martin, Moesha, Felicity, Living Single, Friends, which is just white living single, just all the shows. But I thought I was just going to be a screenwriter and write serious movies. I just never thought about doing comedy at all. I remember watching American Beauty, and I was like, oh, that trash bag floating in the wind speaks to me. I was I was such a pretentious little teenager. And then so I went to Pratt Institute, and we had an informal...
Shout out for Pratt.
Shout out to Pratt.
Yes.
And we had an informal improv troupe on campus, and so that's how I met some people who were really funny. And then one of them, my friend Lindsay, when we graduated, we both worked at different film companies, and I was just kind of hating it.
Yeah.
I just was like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I worked at this indie film company, Picture House, and I just wasn't liking it. And she was like, oh, I'm going to take a stand-up class at Caroline's on Broadway, which is no longer, sadly, which is crazy. I can't believe that place
I can't believe it's gone. It was such an institution.
I know, so huge. And I was like, stand-up sounds pretty dumb. No, I was like, this is dumb. I was like, why would anyone do it? I knew Chris Rock and Wanda Sykes and all this stuff, but I just didn't think it was a legitimate career. Yeah. And she was like, well, you hate your day job. Just take it with me. So it's June 1st, 2008, first class. I was like, oh, this is what I should be doing with my life.
That's amazing.
Truly. And so then I took a class, and then I started doing open mics, which is where you pay $5 to just tell your jokes in front of other comics who aren't paying attention because they have to go up next. Yeah. So it's really just humbling from the beginning, you know what I mean? And then I just hit the ground running, and I would take the $1 bus to Boston. I remember I was so broke. So I could take the $1 bus to Boston, to sleep on a comic's couch, to do shows for free, to take a $1 bus back to... It's insane.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just kind of yep, I'm going to get up in front of people and be a stand-up comedian. And that was sort of a pivot for you.
Yeah, it's just... I don't have the fear of public speaking. I've never kind of had that ever. Which I don't know why. And I like making people laugh. I was always just sort of kind of the funny person in class who would just sort of make side comments and everything. So it seems like a natural fit for me, I guess.
So you pivoted from the screenwriting and that kind of space, but you came back to it, then comedian, and then came back to it through your production company. in your writing for comedy, in your writing on your screenplays, anything that you're doing in any writing capacity, are you bringing stories from your own background there, or are you like what are you bringing to kind of create this material from your own self? What inspires you?
I mean, a lot of it's from my personal life. I think with my show that was on Freeform, Everything's Trash, that was such a collaborative process.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's definitely like the foundation was my life. But we had such a great writer's room. It was still sort of kind of during when COVID was intense. So we just said, we'll just do it all virtually.
Yeah.
So it's half New York writers, half LA writers. So some people were married, single parents, people in their 40s, people in their mid to late 20s. So it was a really good mix of people. So that was so collaborative. And then I think from stand-up, it's very much just me, myself, just sitting down, writing jokes, and I go and try them out. And so it's just, I get to do, I wear a lot of different hats, which is great.
Yep, exactly. I mean, that's what you've been able to build with the platform that you have.
Yeah.
Everything you're doing, which I think today is, as Adrienne said, it's a day of disruption today,
Yes.
right here at Inkwell Beach. And so this is one of the first places here to celebrate the work and experience of people of color. And she formed this and kind of have this incredible space for this to happen, driving the conversation around inclusion and also lifting voices. And so your Tiny Reparations is a space that you are doing that same thing through your platform, through your production company, your imprint. So why is building a space for voices and creating a real sort of spirit and a company that fights for inclusion and raises voices, why is that important now to you?
I think it's been such a huge part of my career, even before the production company and the imprint with Two Dope Queens with Jessica Williams and I. We really were in a place where we're like, we see so many funny people in the city who aren't on late night doing stand-up. You know, still typically it was like white men doing stand-up on late night shows. And we were like, well, why don't we just start our own show in Brooklyn and just have, so we had people on like Bowen Yang and Michelle Buteau, you know, lots of just brilliant, funny people on. And we just felt like we just wanted to have a platform where we could share the space and allow people to, you know, be the heroes of their own stories. And so taking that idea to Tiny Reparations, my production company, Tiny Reparations, my imprint, I just really wanted just people to tell like whatever stories they want to tell and have an outlet. Because I think so many times people's voices are silenced. And so they don't get a chance to tell their story or show off their work. And so they try and they fight for so long. And then it can wear you down. Like the amount of rejection you get based on your identity can make you, it could trick you into thinking like, oh, well, maybe I don't have the talent.
Right.
Maybe I'm not good enough. You know, I definitely have had those moments where I was trying to get into comedy festivals and they'd be like, oh, you don't have what it takes to make it in comedy. And it's like, if I listened to those people,
Forget it.
I wouldn't have what I have. I wouldn't be here talking to you. So it's very important for me to be a place that's going to say yes to people in a world where it's so full of no's. It's just not good.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you, when you curate, you kind of meet folks, is that what, are you looking for people who have maybe gone through the meat grinder of that process first, and then you're sort of like, I'm here, I'm ready, let's go? Or are you really like looking to find people right at the beginning of, and getting them before they have to have those barriers?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. Like one of our authors on Tiny Reparations books, Grace D. Lee, she was in medical school, and she wrote this art heist book about 5 Chinese like teenagers to like early 20s who get hired to steal artifacts from U.S. museums and bring it back to China. And her parents like wanted her to go to medical school, and she's like, but I've always like wanted to write this book.
That's cool.
And I was like, you're a writer. Yeah. This is incredible. So you have people like that, and you have like first-time poets. We just have like a wide range of people. I'm like, I don't care what your experience level is. It's like if you have talent, you have voice, you have a vision, I want to be in business with you and see where it can go.
It's so important to have that representation. I mean, and so it's not just the writing, right, the imprint. It's also you're bringing in kind of younger voices, women of color, you know, just people of color, women in general, to kind of expand their voices and other kinds of content too, right? So does that feed over? You might see a book, you kind of like turn it into a production opportunity. Like, is that how that works?
Yeah. We've definitely are like, there's one book now that's in the proposal stage that I'm like, I want to buy it, and then I want option rights, and I want to turn it into a TV show. Yeah. So it's like we're just going to start that process now. So it's really, given what's going on in Hollywood right now with the strike and everything, it's a little bit tricky. But I think, that's the goal, is like to just have all these different silos work in tandem together.
You're like a media mogul. I know, you should be like flying in a jet coming over here. I know, like your own private.
Well, I'm not making that much
All right,
money
fine.
yet. I'm not
Me neither.
Oprah level yet, but I'm working on it.
I mean, that is incredible. I'm not going to bust out with your age, but you're not that old, and you have built this, and you're just continuing to innovate on everything you do. And like, we were talking, like Phoebe is just like fed and fueled by ideas, and she gets a spark of an idea, and she's like, I'm going to try it. And I love that ability that you believe in yourself, and you believe in yourself to kind of just do it and feel resilient, if things, you have to step back a couple of times, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where trying to break into comedy in Hollywood is so hard if you don't fit in a particular box.
Yeah.
And, people weren't like busting down my door being like, we need to hear jokes from Phoebe. So it really was just through, I taught myself how to do podcast stuff before Two Dope Queens, and then I was very involved in the editing. So I really was just like, I want to make sure I know how to edit, produce, do all these things, because I don't know who's going to say yes to me, so I want to be my first yes.
Right.
And so I really feel like, whether it's Two Dope Queens, a production company, my books, acting, like, it's just the data has proven that if I believe in myself and I'm resilient, that it'll eventually work out. And so I think sometimes people take the first few no's as a sign that it's not right for them. And I'm just sort of like, there's going to be no's that are going to follow you your entire career, I guess, unless you're like Beyonce or something.
Yeah.
So you just really have to just stick with it and just keep getting better and undeniable, and someone's going to say yes eventually.
I mean, I think in your book, everything's trash, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And then the show, too.
Yeah.
That's sort of the through line, right? Is just sort of, there's setbacks. You got to be resilient and not Pollyanna, like look on the bright side, but a little bit of like, my mama used to say, this too shall pass.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So do you feel like, you inspire yourself? You just kind of talked about that. How do you counsel the people that are coming to you, the creators? There's a lot of creative folks here, kind of like trying to get their work seen. What do you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm always of the mind, like, there's only so much that you can control, right? And so I'm always like, just make sure you're as good as possible, whether it's a script, whether it's a podcast, whether it's like your audition, just make sure that you're as prepared as possible. You did the best that you could do at what you're doing. And then just keep, like, every time someone says no, you go, okay, what can I learn from this? It's going to hurt my ego because, we're all sensitive people. That's totally fine. And then apply that to something else, because I think you just don't, the people that I admire, that I look up to and I think are incredible, like someone like an Ali Wong, like she just kept doing the work, and now she's in her 40s and her career is just like incredible. And so for me, I'm like, there's never it's too late. There's never not the right time. You just have to keep going and like not give up. Like I really do feel like it's sort of like the people who can kind of just tough it out.
Yeah.
Eventually, if you just sort of hang around enough, you're like, I'm still here. Someone will be like, all right, let this bitch do what she's got to do. You know what I mean? Like, we can't fight you anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right, so again, the day of disruption here. I think, one of the things in disruption is disrupting kind of old processes or old assumptions, or, so-and-so said it should be this way, so that's the way it is. And so in the creative process, like, so you've shared how you kind of handle and build resilience for yourself and kind of soothe yourself to keep rolling. But do you have an example of a time when somebody underestimated you or said, that's not really what you should be doing. Why don't you, can you share something like that?
Absolutely. I mean, when...
You don't have to name names unless you want to.
No. When Jessica and I first started doing Two Dope Queens, we were doing it for free at UCB East, which is also another comedy space that is no longer. And people were just like, so you guys are just like hosting this like variety comedy, what is this? And I was like, no, it's gonna be something. Like, don't you worry. And then we just kept like doing it. And slowly we started doing like comedy festivals like Bridgetown and Portland, and just building sort of that momentum. And then we sold it to WNYC, and we were like, we get to keep our name. That was like the one thing I remember from What's Love Got to Do with It. It's like, keep the name. You always want to keep your name.
Yep. That's right.
And so then we started working on the podcast. It came out April 2016, and it debuted like #1 around the world.
Yeah.
Which was like so. I mean, we weren't
amazing.
we weren't expecting that, but it was very much like Jessica and I just kept doing the work. We saw the vision of the podcast, even when people were like, "Why are you starting out doing a show for free?" And I'm just like, yeah, if it was like 10 years of doing a show for free, that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, you just kind of have to like invest in yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's hard for people to be like, I don't know if I could take a gamble on myself, but I think it's always worth it.
It is.
Because you never know where it's going to end up.
That's the kind of stuff that needs to inspire. I mean, this is the work we do with like women and young girls, and just like it is really hard to kind of go through, and particularly if you're living in situations that are not economically stable and life stable, to kind of keep that resilience going is tough.
Yeah.
And so I think breaking processes and breaking old school thinking and changing minds is important. Do you feel like, what do you say to female creators? I mean, there's a whole boys club in comedy, right? There's a whole boys club in entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had several male folks sitting across the table saying like, aren't you a sweet girl? You do that little podcast.
Yeah.
How do you kind of tell them to sort of stand up and not and navigate that? Because you've navigated it in your own kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, when I started doing stand-up, I remember I was doing this one show in New York, and this guy who was running it, he goes, well, we can't, it was like I was going to be up next, and then there was like another woman on the show, and he was like, well, I can't have 2 women go back to back, because then people are going to think this is like a weird woman show. And I literally go, what the fuck are you talking
Totally.
about? It's not a weird woman show, you idiot.
Yeah.
But it's just those sorts of things where you just are kind of like, it is so male-dominated in a way that 2 women on a comedy show is going to freak people out. So I think to me, whenever people say ignorant things like that, I'm always like, okay, I'm just going to prove you wrong.
I love it.
I'm going to go up and crush, and then this woman's going to follow me. She's going to go up and crush, and then you just have to eat your words. Because
That's right.
I think a lot of times people just have to be shown that they're ignorant.
Yeah.
And are there moments where it's frustrating? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, why do I have to prove
deal
that
with
I
this?
belong
Yes.
every single day?
Yep.
Like I'm up here doing the work just like everyone else, and it's really frustrating. But I think that's part of the reason why I just wanted to self-create so much, because I did get frustrated by all this sort of like the gatekeeping and the sort of like, well, we already have a black woman on the show, so we're not going to do a second one.
Right.
Or, we had a black woman at this club like a month ago, so that's kind of it for the year.
Right.
Those sorts of things where you're like, I just want to work.
Right.
I just want to be funny. I want to create. I'm here to pay my dues and do whatever I got to do. And you're still having these barriers. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just create my own shit.
Yeah. And in the characters that you're writing about, you want them to be women that are not in some box, or not the black woman that does X, Y, Z. It is like a full woman of experience, and that you are putting forth that in your creative work.
Yeah, I try because, like as much as I love Shonda Rhimes, like she very much makes like the black woman who can like solve everything. Mm-hmm. And I know with like Everything's Trash, I really was just interested in a black woman who kind of didn't have it together and was sort of figuring things out. And in the first episode, character, she's with a fuck buddy, if you will, want to call it. His condom
Comic
breaks.
relief, right?
Yeah. His condom breaks. She has to get a plan B.
Yep.
And we had to fight a lot with Freeform because they were very much pushing back on that. And they're like, we don't know. We think this might make her slutty. We're not sure about this. And I was like, listen, like, this is a reality. This is what happened. Like, some women go through this. And, like, we have to show. We can't pretend like it doesn't happen.
Right.
And so I think there's always going to be the powers that be that want to keep everyone in a box.
Yeah.
And like, oh, we don't want to show this side. Is this going to make her unlikable? And I'm like, a guy has never asked that question. Never, ever, ever.
No.
Yeah.
No. So now that you're working with more streaming, or thinking about the sort of media entertainment complex, because you just do more and more, right?
Yeah.
Are you finding those same conversations that happen to you about like 2 women back to back at the stand-up club isn't right? Are you seeing those same conversations kind of happen? Like we have this show, we have that show, like, and you're just having the same ones again?
I feel like there
or the
is
door's opening?
There's a little bit of growth happening where
Yeah.
I think it's just more people are just finally accepting that women are going to be doing stand-up comedy just as much as men are. And so I think we're in a good place. I think there's still sort of now you're like trying to make sure you're getting paid as much as the guys are. So there's always going to be those kinds of difficulties that are going to come up. But I think there's a positive shift. And I think actually with it being less gatekeeping of like just the comedy bookers, it's like you can build your own following on TikTok. You go the podcast route. That's sort of like how I built my following.
Yeah.
And so you could become your own proof of concept where it's like, okay, I did Two Dope Queens.
Yes.
I did Everything's Trash. I've written these 3 books, so now I can have my own imprint. Like, so people see you put it in the work. So I think it can make it easier if you just go ahead and take control of your career instead of being like, please, knock, knock, please, 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 please. Just being like, I'm going to be over here working.
Yeah.
You guys will eventually figure it out that I'm the shit. Yeah.
You are the shit. I first of all, yeah. I mean, I love that. That is just so. Be your own proof of concept. I love that. I totally believe in that too. And you are the, human representation of that for sure. You are the original disruptor, my friend, and I just thank you for sharing everything. That whole journey is like super inspiring. Every time we talk, I get more inspired. So thank you for being here. Please, a round of applause for Miss Phoebe.
Thank you for being here, guys.
Tell everybody where they can see you, where they can follow you real quick.
Yeah, I have my stand-up tour, Messy AF, that starts this fall. Touring America. Get tickets at phoeberobinson.com. And yeah.
Instagram.
I'm Dope Queen Phoebes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out in these streets.
All the socials.
I'm on the socials. I'm single, so if there's any rich guys here.
There's all those men in the boats up
Yeah,
there.
right.
Yeah, I know. We were looking at it.
Yeah, get me on a yacht. Someone get me on a yacht. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Oh, yes. I'm so sweaty, sorry.
Me too. Oh, God.
Thank you. That was so Thank you. That was so fun. That flew by so quickly.
I know.
I loved it.
That's why she's wearing that orange.
I know. She was like, hey, you guys gotta go.
Oh, my God. That was...
Oh, it's a lot of just
Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome again to Inkwell Beach. Welcome to day 3, the day of disruption. I'm really excited to introduce to you our next panelists. I'd like to welcome to the stage Eden, CEO at Ebony, and Jean-Rene, Chief People Officer at United Talent Agency. Welcome. This is for you.
Good afternoon.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jean-Rene. Most people call me JR. I'm the Chief People Officer for United Talent Agency. I must say United Talent Agency has done well here.
Yes.
We have you as one of our clients.
Happy to
we
now
had
be
Tiffany
part of the
earlier-
family.
Yes, indeed. We had Tiffany earlier, and we have Issa later this afternoon. So we're doing our thing. It's my honor to be here with you today to lead us through a conversation about the most influential Black-owned media company, Ebony Media Group. Ebony's been creating content and experiences that inform and inspire all those who celebrate Black lives and culture. In its mission statement, the Ebony brand was created to chronicle, profile, and provide access to the people, places, events, and the communities and the moments that are moving Black forward and shining the light on the very best of our community. I think we can all say, without a doubt, that you all have been able to do that successfully and so much more. I mean, I can remember times when I was looking at the Ebony magazine's covers and getting inspiration about what I aspire to be like. So thank you for the work that's been done there.
Yeah.
In July of 2022, Eden was named the Chief Executive Officer of Ebony. And she can be credited with the revival of the iconic company through a bold and widely successful rebranding effort. Leading the company through a historical comeback, she's maintained Ebony's legacy and initial mission to be the authentic voice of the Black experience. Today, Ebony has over 20 million viewers per month.
Yep.
I'm one of them, by the way.
As you should be.
Thank you. Previously, she served as the CMO for Manna, Inc., and while at Manna, she led the company's marketing department and oversaw all of the company's brands. For those people who are not familiar, Manna affiliates operate Wendy's, Golden Corral, Fazoli's restaurants, to name a few. So that's great progress, and that's a lot. Cheers to your company and your family. She's committed her community and has helped to lead the company's philanthropic efforts, which coincide with her family's commitment to pay it forward through programs that support the African American community. She earned her MBA at Loyola University Chicago Quinlan School of Business. Very good. And today we're honored here to really speak to you about the role that Ebony plays within the Black community, your vision for the brand, and leading the organization during its most challenging time. We'll hear about the rebranding journey. We'll talk about your efforts to expand Ebony and Jet's brands globally on the global stage, and how Ebony continues to serve as a disruptor in media. So, on that note, a round of applause for Eden.
Thank you, thank you.
Very good. So let's get it started. When you were appointed to CEO in 2022, you said that the traditional Ebony platform was rooted in magazine publishing. But in today's world of media, there are broader opportunities for the brand to connect with culture while elevating Ebony Media Group's global presence and influence. Can you share a bit about your growth strategy and how you've done so far in this past year?
Absolutely. So happy to be here with you all to tell more about the Ebony and Jet story. But our rebranding efforts, what we realized is you can't go anywhere in this world and not know the brand Ebony. If I were to put the logo up, it automatically for a community has a rich emotional connection. So for us, we knew we couldn't just operate in one medium in order to have the progress and growth of creating more emotional connections to a brand that's been in existence for over 77 years. Mm-hmm. So for us, we said, if I have this brand equity that is so rich, what are the ways in order to now find this audience in new mediums? So going digital, something that the brand should have done years ago. So going deeper into ebony.com, creating a 360 digital experience. But then we also understand that people want to tangibly go to Ebony. Mm-hmm. And so what does our experiential plan look like?
being here this week, we've been taking note of how does Ebony show up in a more dynamic way in this festival. It showcases the best of Black culture on a daily basis. How do we do that now during this week? And that's where we say Ebony has to integrate into where Black excellence is, not just here in the US, but the idea that we have to be that bridge for anyone of color around the world so that they can see themselves. And it's our job to find all the avenues possible to connect the diaspora.
Awesome, awesome. 3 years ago, Ebony went bankrupt, and many feared that the publication would actually cease to exist. Nearly 3 years later, the brand is stronger than ever, thanks to your leadership. Can you take us through some of the challenges that you faced when you took over as CEO, and share perhaps what you're most proud of over the course of this last 3-year experience?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I like to tell people is that my family actually owns the brand. So not only do I sit as CEO, but I also have a secondary responsibility of stewarding the brands as an owner. And so as an entrepreneur, the fact that I started out during the pandemic with amazing IP that I bought out of bankruptcy, all previous employees had been furloughed. So when we started day one, January 2021, we had absolutely nothing.
Wow.
And so over the past few years, through a passion for seeing the best of people that look like me, I've been able to connect and find first talent because I needed to build a culture. I needed to find people that share that same vision. And then we had to understand we're not a nonprofit.
Right.
We are a viable business. And so what are the ways in order for Ebony to not just be this brand, but to be a business leader? And so we had to really dig deep into the IP and understand how do we extract ideas in order to create a P&L that is going to be profitable. And so I would say the hardest challenge has just been connecting the newer audiences in a way to the way our grandparents understood Ebony, because it came into your home. Now you have to find Ebony in all new ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a real challenge because we are over-inundated with so many things at all times. How do we break through? But I'd say, although it's challenging, it's probably the greatest opportunity because I'm able to reimagine what Ebony is, reimagine what Jet is, because we started out at literally the bottom.
Wow, so thank you very much for that journey in terms of shepherding and bringing on the new tier of people to sort of make this happen. When you see Ebony, what do you see its biggest challenges are right now?
I think the biggest challenge for Ebony is how do you continue a legacy? How do you understand that there are roots that are so deep and that people have an idea already of what this brand is?
Mm-hmm.
But you also have a generation that has never interacted with the brand other than maybe they went to their grandparents' house and they saw an Ebony or a Jet on the coffee table, and that was their only interaction. So bridging that gap, I'd say from a generational age, is probably one of our biggest challenges because we want to maintain that legacy.
Mm-hmm.
But we understand the world of individuals growing up after my age, and I'm 36 years old, so I say I'm young, but I'm still not that young anymore, that how do I connect with who's behind me, but also who was in front of me in a way that they can see themselves. And so that, I would say right now, is our biggest challenge of holding the legacy while paving a new modern idea of what this brand has to be.
Excellent. You know, Ebony represents a wide range of experiences within the Black community, both U.S. and internationally. So how do you plan to expand Ebony Media Group's footprint on the global stage?
Well, we've already started. At January of this year, if you haven't seen, which I'm sure some of you all, Jonathan Majors, you know, the February cover that we released with that, I'm seeing some women smile, so I know that y'all saw that one. But even before that, when we started out this year, we wanted to showcase where this brand is going globally. So we created an African hub in order to showcase stories and narratives that are happening on the continent of Africa. Our first digital cover was Idris Elba and his beautiful wife Sabine, because we wanted to, again, make that bridge. They are popular, yes, in the US, but they have these deep connection and roots on the continent of Africa. So why not start with them, that they can already be that bridge? And from there, we went into the Caribbean. We took a group of influencers to Jamaica to experience an authentic Jamaican carnival activation. We were on the road, we wined, we ate jerk chicken. We did everything because Ebony is going to be where the people are and show this lifestyle of what it means to be Black in 2023 around the world.
Good. And capturing it from different parts of the world is
Yes, absolutely.
Incredibly important. You know, at UTA, you know, we're a global talent, sports, entertainment, advisory company that we represent artists that basically, athletes, storytellers that basically are the voices and visions that really define culture and shape what's going on in the world. And entrepreneurship is at the core of our culture and our mission. That's what we espouse every day in terms of what we look for from our employees and obviously from our clients. Can you share a little bit about how Ebony engages and supports emerging Black entrepreneurs and talent overall?
Well, we can't exist without entrepreneurs in the sense of we need individuals that look like us, wanting to engage with us first as vendors, being able to bring their talents as we're building this company. So if you're in data, if you're in analytics, as we grow in having a true full-fledged understanding of this demographic, what are the ways that we can engage with entrepreneurs that are leading in that industry? Another way is the creators. We don't exist. We have nothing to talk about if there's not more individuals saying, I'm going to pave a way and create my own avenue in the creative world, in fashion, in entertainment, in all of these. So Ebony is based on amplifying what the Black individual is doing on a day-to-day. And so for us, entrepreneurialism is just part of what we do. And so it's not a matter of carving out a special lane. It's the idea of just showcasing what we do day in and day out through this platform.
So in essence, it's part of the DNA.
It is absolutely part of the DNA.
Awesome. The theme for today was and has been about disruption. Ebony has been and continues to be considered a disruptor. Can you share what you intend to do to make sure that the brand is always regarded as such? And in your opinion, what really makes Ebony a disruptor?
Well, I think how we are going to maintain it is fully understanding our brand position. We amplify a sophisticated lifestyle of people of color. And being true to that and understanding we're not going to be for everyone, but we can showcase what it means to have upward mobility around this world. And then being a disruptor, I think that word sometimes feels like you need to be, creating Tesla or Uber or something like that. But the fact that we decided to take a legacy brand that had been dormant and do it during a time of complete disruption in our world.
What was going on in the world at that time?
Well, during that time frame, we were all sheltering in place, not understanding if tomorrow we were going to get this invisible virus that we didn't know how to protect ourselves from. But also, when we first learned that Ebony and Jet had gone into bankruptcy, it was July of 2020. During that time frame, we were grappling with George Floyd. And I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. So we were grappling with Breonna Taylor. And I had a firsthand account of what happens when you don't have the right voices and you don't have the right narrative to lead us forward. And you know what was missing during that time? Ebony and Jet, because they had already entered into bankruptcy. So the idea of disruption for me is that we need these narratives. So every day I will disrupt the norm of what Black people can do and what we can see by making sure Ebony and Jet will always exist.
Awesome. Bravo.
Thank you.
There's some things that we always talk about when we're going through these, interviews and say, hey, here's what some of the areas that we want you to touch upon. One of the things I saw is that you made a comment about the company operating from the motto of moving Black forward. What does that mean to you?
I've been asked that question so many times, even internally when people come in and like, well, what does moving Black forward actually mean? Progress. It means that we aren't standing still. It means that I may have achieved something so far, but where am I going now? How do I continually challenge myself? How do we continually challenge each other to move forward? I am second generation now in our family business. I want to move my family's business forward so that my daughter and her children and go on from there can continue this legacy. So we have to, if we're representing people of color, have to always find ways to help move us forward into more success, more visibility, more access to capital, more. The idea that we just can't afford to be stagnant. You see that already. I've sat in on panels throughout this week hearing about the disruption of AI and what it's doing in the creator community. We as Black individuals can't afford to be still. We have to move forward into these mediums so that we're not left behind as we have been traditionally. So for Ebony, it's that idea that every day we will find ways to make sure we are always moving forward.
First of all, that's wonderful. You know, when you think about the next 3 to 5 years, what are you most excited about?
World domination is what I'm going to achieve, so that's it.
All right. I'll partner with you on that journey.
Listen, no, I mean, obviously, for us, we want to continue to grow this business. I think a lot of times people talk about I want to grow my brand, but for me, I'm a CEO, I'm hyper-focused that I have to understand how do I grow my business? How do I make sure that my P&L is so incredibly tight that I can reinvest back into the things that will leapfrog our company into wherever we need to go so that we can employ more individuals, we can make sure more individuals are able to tell their stories, and that we have a legacy where 77 years from now, when I may be, technology and I may still be here by then, but nonetheless, if I'm not here.
Spiritually, at least.
Spiritually, yes, absolutely. The idea that we did everything that we needed to so that in 77 years, we're talking about the legacy continuing, not continuing through another bankruptcy acquisition, but that the business side was able to continue to disrupt itself so that it can stay relevant and viable for years to come.
Awesome. For me as, a senior Black executive, it's always wonderful to have a senior Black woman executive at the helm of an organization. So cheers to you on that front. One of the things I'm curious about is, part of this set of activities around this festival is about introducing that next wave, that next generation of creative, diverse talent to this forum to see what this could be like when we're celebrating creativity. What would be the one thing that you'd want to pass on to the next generation of folks that are here?
I'd say that you're already equipped with what you have. And what I mean by that is this. Our family background, as you kind of mentioned, Manna Incorporated, we first started out in the restaurant industry. And I was able to gain skills necessary in my family operations to allow me to understand eventually what I needed to do as CEO. Because I knew at one day I was going to have my own company and I was going to make sure that I was creating more for our family's wealth building. And so what I didn't realize, I think, through the years is all the nuggets I had to go through that prepared me for each and every step of the way. And I think a lot of times we think, oh, I need this and I need that, but you're already equipped in so many ways to do the amazing things already. So I would say don't look at what others, oh, I need this, I need that. You yourself already have, so lean into that because you're already prepared for your next big leap.
Fantastic. And did you peep out what she said? She said I was going to own my own company. And that's important because obviously she has a legacy already in place, but she's doing hers on her own, so she's evolving and building on that. So cheers to you on that front.
Thank you.
This has been wonderful.
Yes, thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Adrian, this one's for you.
Hello, hello, hello again. Welcome to Wednesday, our day of disruption. If you have been enjoying our day of disruption so far, let me hear you say yes. Have you been enjoying my day of disruption? Yes. I don't believe you. I need to hear it one more time. Have you been enjoying this day of disruption? Yes. Okay, so let me just get your energy up because this next panel is, I'm going to say it's the epitome, the highlight, the end-all, be-all of disruption. We're going to bring up what we call the West African Voltrons. I mean, the most powerful panel you're going to hear on this this strip of the corset. I'm super excited. This started with a conversation of me and Luvvie saying, what can we do? She's like, let's just disrupt something. I said, well, let's just have a whole day of disruption. And she said, bet. She's going to pull together a few of her bestie of best friends. And right now, we're so proud to bring them to the Inkwell stage on our 5-year anniversary. Our 5-year anniversary. And so let's get this conversation, this day of disruption conversation started right now. Yep. We have Bozama and Luvvie, Justina and Abiola. Give them a round of applause, y'all, because you're going to be clapping all day.
How's everybody doing today? How is everybody doing today? Look at all this melanin in the audience. We're really excited to be here. My name is Abiola Oke. I'm the CEO of Adisa Advisory. We're a strategic advisory firm that supports companies at the intersection of media, entertainment, and technology. And I'm really honored to speak on something that's really dear to all of us, and it's the power of storytelling, narratives, and how increasingly borderless our ability to tell stories, share stories, and change how we see ourselves are. And I'd like my fellow friends and panelists here to introduce themselves, starting with Luvvie.
Hi, I'm Luvvie Ajayi Jones, and I am a New York Times bestselling author, speaker, and four-time, amen. Speaker and podcast host, and I thrive at the intersection of culture, leadership, and business. And I'm excited to be here with some of my besties. You know, it's gonna be a good conversation. Clap, clap.
Hello, everyone. My name is Justina Makwa. I'm the SVP of a little company called Parkwood Entertainment.
Slight word.
There's a lot going on right now, but I'm here with you. I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward to a great conversation with friends.
Okay. And she's comfortable in her skin.
Very.
Hey.
Get it? Yeah. I'm Bozoma St. John. I am a world-renowned...
Come on, Hall of Famer.
Hall of Fame inducted marketer. I've been the CMO of Netflix, Endeavor, Uber, head of global marketing at Apple Music and iTunes, and head of entertainment at PepsiCo. And I'm an author of The Urgent Life and a general badass. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's dig into it. So we're gonna take a round table approach here. We're gonna talk like we talk in the WhatsApps and the DMs.
Hey,
that's a disaster.
uh-oh.
Okay. Let's keep it real.
All right.
So a lot has happened since the pandemic. Corporations have made commitments to fund and empower Black creators and storytellers. A lot of those companies have fallen short. Let's talk about where we go from here.
Do we want to address why they've fallen short?
Let's talk about it.
Okay. Well, one is I think that oftentimes people see Black people as a monolith. And so it falls short there to see that, for people not to see that there is diversity within Blackness, right? Whether it's your sexual orientation, your country of origin, your difference of opinion, your education, there's so much to see, and oftentimes it's just Black. And so it's, well, I had one Black person in the room, and surely they represent the masses, or it's in response to something that has happened that is terrible, and so it's, okay, I'm going to do this thing to say that, you know, I love Black people, or I'm okay with Black people. The intent behind it is not based on an infrastructure that allows for something to be sustainable. And that's why you see a lot of these initiatives are falling short.
Also, Black Square Summer was a performance. I remember the day that the Black Squares were going up. If y'all remember, the call to action that day was for us to boycott social media. I thought that was ridiculous, because you're gonna tell Black people to be more quiet in a world that silences us? I instantly was like, absolutely not. If there's anybody to be quiet, it's not us. If there's anybody to tap out of social media for a day, it's not us. So as all the brands started putting up black squares, I was calling bullshit. Because it was the most non-statement statement of all time. And then all of a sudden, you start seeing brands that never did anything, all black square, and then they all had this like boilerplate, oh my gosh, we stand with black people. The fact that 2 years, 3 years actually, it's been 3 years, that a lot of them have not fulfilled their pledges is not shocking because that was all a performance. What did executive boards look like? What was the turnover of their black and brown, teams? They did not mean to do anything. And because they counted on us not having an attention span, because that's often the case, they got away with it and are getting away with it now. And I think where we need to be is figuring out how we can really hold them accountable to all the things that they said they would do in 2020 and beyond. Because what we're seeing also now is a DEI backlash. A bunch of DEI officers who were hired in 2020 are no longer in their jobs. They have like 1 year roles, and all of a sudden they're leaving because they realize the company was not doing anything. So,
yeah. As a brown-skinned girl, there have been too many times when I have been in the Monday morning meeting after some campaign or product we have put out, and by the way, specifically targeted towards us, and the results are not what were expected. And then what happens? We roll it back. We say, oh, it didn't perform. The challenge is that most of the time, when it is not specifically targeted towards us, you let something breathe. Give us some time to pick up steam. Everybody will find an excuse. They say, oh, well, the market, this and that. Oh, well, the weather. That was why they didn't watch the show. Or that's why they didn't, pick up the product. And you give it some time to breathe. It does not happen with us. And so part of what you're asking, I think, is our own responsibility in not just relying on corporations to make the changes or to do the thing. We have to support, too. I think so many times I've been in these conversations where, of course, look, the entertainment world, the product world, they're not perfect in terms of what they are delivering to us, right? We know that. We want more intentionality, and even to what Justina was saying about, knowing that we're not a monolith, we want more diversity within the stories of blackness. Yes. However, if we don't support what we have, we won't get more. That's the problem. So it's like, if you're going to consume entertainment, whether that is film or sport or music or, hell, pick anything, please make sure that, hell, I don't care if you turn on the TV and just let it run. We've got to support the things, and that's how then we encourage even more change, because then what happens is, and Luvvie, you know this from even your books, four-time New York Times bestseller will tell you, yes, that the next time a black woman comes into that meeting to present or to pitch her book that is nonfiction, somebody will say, oh, it's like a Luvvie Ajayi Jones book. You know what I mean? And they'll reference that. And so it's like, if you're going to do anything, purchase her book. Gift it to somebody else. Watch the show. Even if you don't agree with the entire storyline. Listen to the music. Play some Afro beats, please. So that we have even more reliance on the fact that our numbers really do work. But we have to support our content.
Yes.
Abby, let me ask you this question real quick. And then Justina, because I know Abby needs to get in. Yeah. So when you're asking the question of, how do we build our own table? What is the barrier of entry?
Thank you, Luvvie. I think the reality is that we have to think about the opportunity outside of our culture and race, right? The truth is that, I said this about BET, for example, right? We've all seen the show Atlanta. Atlanta is on FX, right? Brilliant show. Issa Rae, Insecure was on HBO. Why isn't the best black content on the black networks? Exactly. So what I find as our challenge is, we're not even doing the best black content on the platforms that we have influence in. Because what we should be able to do is also cater to non-black consumers, because it's a numbers game. Yes, we know racism is institutional, but it's also a numbers game. It's 43 million black people in the United States accounted for, right? Of that number, something like 60% of our spending is actually on things like milk, detergent. It's not on discretionary. And so we do have this purchasing power, but it's limited. And so if I'm a brand, if I say, okay, I'm gonna spend $1 million on BET, well, but that same eyeball is gonna watch content on FX. Why do I have to spend twice? And so when our platforms are creating content, we really need to think, okay, how as a black creator can I get that Italian audience, that German audience? And I think if we spread out who we target, perhaps we can have more agency in the marketplace.
I want to challenge that.
Okay.
I think that oftentimes we believe that we have to do things for other people when we actually are. The reality is that when you can look up, check your phone, look at the charts. When you look at music, we dominate, right, in terms of what popular music is. The eyeballs are there. The people are they're in the stadiums and the arenas, and they don't necessarily look like us.
Right.
We are the culture.
Right.
We are the moment. But I do agree with you is that our platforms, we need to bolster our platforms, because if we build it, they will come because they're already there. Right. And what they do is they look and they replicate. And so what we need to stop is giving away our secrets. That's really what happens. Is you need to stop going to the panel where they don't pay you for your ideas so that they can go rebuild them, or consulting on a project because they want your perspective but they don't want to give you money, and where they replicate your idea. And you know, the challenge is that we need to recognize our power and activate against it, and stop. I'm not worried about them. I want us to worry about us.
Yes. Exactly. I have a thought also, which is that, so you brought up the issue of BET, right? And I also want us to consider the domino effects. So this is kind of expanding on my last point, which is that, when was the last time you watched BET? You know, when was the last time you watched it?
Comic View?
But you know what? But this is the truth of it, right? Because look, BET exists to get advertising dollars to run its program, right? Programming doesn't get the money unless there is a coffer from advertising. Right. Advertising comes because the numbers show that people are engaging on the network. Right. And so therefore, if I'm PepsiCo or I'm Nike or I'm whatever, I'm going to spend where the audience is. If there's no audience on BET, I'm not going to spend my money there, which means that the programming team is not going to have money to develop the content that you want to watch. And so that's my point, which is that, like, sometimes I realize that it feels very circular, and it feels like, oh my God, well, why can't we get this on this, and why couldn't we get this show on? Well, we're not even there anyway. So my challenge again is that, like, throw on some BET, put it on, watch it, get those numbers up. And then advertisers are gonna come, which means the programs will have more money, and then they'll go get the next Issa.
I mean, it's the chicken before the egg syndrome, right? But then there comes the piece that I think is also something we have to interrogate as a people, how we, one, do not expect elevation from each other. That is a big problem. The ways in which we do not show up for each other like we should. We talked about this probably yesterday when we were talking about the numbers game and what happens when we realize our power in just the way we dictate what's cool. We dictate what the rest of the world is doing. So then when we are not expecting a certain level from each other and then showing up for each other. So even when you think about black businesses, right? When we think about how we even treat black businesses. That's true. The way when somebody messes up at Target on your behalf, you're like, oh, that was just one cashier. But let a black business not ship your product for a week and a half, you taking it to Instagram. Child, this is why I don't shop here all the time. I'm like, what happened? Who hurt you? The grace that we have in the world for everybody else, the ways we allow other people to talk to us, where we be like, why she just did that to me? How are we actually showing up for each other, giving each other grace so that we can take more risks? Because that's the other piece. The rewards that we want to come can't come without risks. Can't come without us actually taking these big bets that might not work out and then us being able to forgive when the person falls. Yeah. So whether music, books, television, business, I think the way that we interact with commerce, black commerce, is so different from how we interact with everybody else.
Luvvie, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Adam Newman, who was the founder of WeWork, raised $300 million from Andreessen for a new company.
A new company after fumbling $1 billion bag.
And so and I'll say this real quick, my issue isn't that they've done that. It's that, to your point, we don't do that for ourselves. We don't do that for ourselves.
I want to go back to the BET conversation because I think it requires us to be introspective. We are talking about one company because, again, we want BET to represent all of us and all of our ideas. And I'm saying we need more BETs. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that if your bag is Atlanta, then you go with that. Or if your bag is Insecure, then you go with that. Or if your bag is Comic View or whatever it is, you go with that. And I think that oftentimes, again, it's grouped as black. And we are different. And so we need space for different. I want the thing that is sci-fi. I want the thing that is Afrofuturism. I want the thing that is artsy-fartsy. I want the thing that is, different. And yet, oftentimes, we get pushed into one corner.
Let me ask you a question. So we're talking about borderless storytelling, right?
Yes.
Our beauty is our diversity. But the question is our diversity a challenge for scale?
No, because it's not a challenge for scale and whiteness. And when we look at the diaspora, to Justina's point, there's an opportunity for so much more, to serve in different ways. And what I think is interesting is that, if there were, let's say, a music channel that was really just music, right, which served our music choices, imagine, the kind of programming we would have, right? Because think about the breadth of music that would be programmed on such a network, even without the, other content, just music videos. Right. Yeah. And so how then are we able to, and look, nobody gets brownie points for not being just, one-sided, right? Monolithic. And so if it is able to be solved for whiteness, why can't it be solved for blackness?
Absolutely. I also want to offer that most of our perspective comes from an American lens. And when you leave America, the conversation of blackness is very different. When you head to the continent, most people are black, right? And so there's not this conversation of how black am I, or I need to sit in a black corner. When we were all recently in Amsterdam, and I need to bring this full circle, the conversation around dance music. That originates with us. But in America, it's like a controversial topic. It's like we have to reclaim it. And when you go to Amsterdam, if it's it's us, right? And we're leading that charge. And yet in America, I feel like we have to reclaim everything. And if we do, then let's do it, right? Yeah. And let's not stay in one space. We have a question.
The kind of scary reality that I'm noticing it's easier to get platformed by white spaces like an HBR, like a Fast Company, versus getting a call back from my people, from a Luvvie, from et cetera. So what is our collective responsibility to be looking out for each other, and why does it sometimes seem like access is easier when you're not going through a black space? It's been my experience.
So you want to take this one? Here.
I could talk so much about that. I think part of the challenge is resource. So I'll give you a nugget. I ran a media company, and it was really challenging. And I put on the hat of CEO. And a friend of mine said, when you're a black executive, you're not a CEO, you're a politician. And the reason is because, and it made sense because when you have a story, when people come to our media company, they're coming to me with a certain familiarity and an expectation that I'm going to help. If you're going to the New York Times to get an article, you approach it a little differently. And this is not to say that black media companies should be left off the hook in terms of telling our stories, but that's one resource to Bose's point about it's like one BET, right? And black media companies are also required to tell the full gamut of black stories, whereas you can have a Fast Company that talks about one very specific vertical, or Wired that talks about tech, and you have all these magazines that have all these verticals, whereas black media companies are required to tell a gamut of stories. And to Bose's point again about advertising, without being able to get the same advertising resources. And so black media companies are being forced to do so much more, right? Essence has to put on a whole festival to even make the business model work, right? And Financial Times doesn't really have to do that. They're subscriber base. And the last thing I'll say is our media platforms are also heavily indexed on lifestyle, which is a little different.
So that's also a great point. To the lack of us being a monolith, we end up being viewed as being interested in the same type of content over and over again. Yesterday I was talking about how, for example, in books, publishing is more comfortable giving us deals that are circulated around racism in America or blackness in America than they are about having you write a book about leadership or a business or joy or love, okay? And it's because we keep on being placed in these boxes, and when they say that's the box for you, so yeah, lifestyle. They're like, yes, we would love for you to do a lifestyle. No, where's a technology company that is really gonna focus on blackness and black people and our needs? So I think it's all part of the greater idea of them putting us in these tiny cages and then us not knowing how to break out of it. And we're seeing the reflections in all sorts of industries.
I think it's important. I'm not saying that anybody needs to go into a company and be Richard Wright or Rashonda Righteousness, but I think it's important that when you are in the building, that we are having these conversations. When the George Floyd conversation was circulating for us, Bose and I happened to be at the same company at the time, there was a lot of tell us what you think. And I was like, I don't have all the answers for all the black people. I could tell you how I feel about being here. I could tell you about how I feel walking down the street. But if you want me to be a black spurt, I can't do that for you. And I think that it's important that in the companies and in the spaces that we occupy, it's okay to say, I don't know. Or it's okay to say, don't ask me that question. Go read a book.
Hi.
Somebody has stand up.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Abby Lynn Gonzalez. I'm a Dillard University student. I wanted to talk about the BET topic and the fact that BET was owned by white people for so long. And seeing that Tyler Perry recently bought it out to be the owner, how do you think that's going to change the narrative of black people being a monolith?
I don't know that that deal is complete yet. I know that we're hearing the reports. I don't think that it's finalized. But go ahead, Luvvie.
So, and I think one thing we all have to also understand is white ownership is not necessarily white control all the time. There's layers to what BET has had to go through for the last 20 years. Yeah. How Tyler is gonna shift it, if he ends up being the owner of BET, I think that's gonna be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and it's also, again, I how do I want to put it? It's like, I want us to actually understand our own power.
Yes.
You know, that when we talk about, again, it's like white ownership or what is being improved, it's like, look, I think maybe the overarching theme is that we have to support our own things. We don't do that enough. And so we keep pointing somewhere else and saying, well, why don't they do this? And why don't they do that? And how will it change? And I'm like, but you're not watching it. You know, you're not even supporting it. So how are we going to say whether or not Tyler is going to change the whole thing? You know, I think it would be wonderful if he owns it. He's done such a magnificent job of content, but he's also doing one type of content. You know, so that doesn't even speak to all of us, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But again and again, we've said on this panel that we have more power than sometimes we assign ourselves. You know, and I recognize the fact that it feels sometimes like, you know, just overwhelming, like there's nothing you can do. But if we look around at the creators who are even here in Cannes, you know, it's like, how many of us are going to leave here and be supportive of somebody else's creativity? We're all doing a lot of networking. You're meeting a lot of people. It's like, how are you supporting them? Oh, and by the way, can we also take it out of just the creative space and support executives? How many in this audience are executives at a company? Okay? Right. So you looking around the people who holding up their hands. We are leaving in droves. And my contention is always, and we've had a lot of these conversations when I left Netflix a year ago, everybody said, oh, well, why don't you start your own thing? And I'm like, that's not really what I want to do. You know, that's not what I want to do. I think being an entrepreneur is a fantastic thing, and I wish everybody well who does that, but that's not necessarily my bag. I don't understand why we can't own the things that somebody else has built. Why do I need to go build it myself? I'm like, no, I'm going to come take your shit. You know what I mean? Like, you built that, I'm coming to get it.
So we're not digging around?
And so it's like, yes, what'd you say?
He said, so we're not digging around.
No, we're not at all. We're coming to get it. We're coming to get everything they said we couldn't have. And so the point that I'm making is that, you know, if there are people around you that you know are struggling, even in their decision-making position, executive positions at the companies in which they are struggling in, let's support each other in that too, right? Because in order for us to see those changes anywhere, not just in our own spaces, but in other people's own spaces, we have to support us who are in there. You know? And we all know that shit ain't easy. So it's like, I want to support Justina and what she's doing, although she's working for a black company, but I still want to support her.
Amen.
You know? And I want to make sure that executives who are in these spaces are still supported so they don't leave. Right. We need to get more to the top, and therefore we can have more decision-making power.
And Bose, and then I know he has a question. What I'll say is, I love our diversity. I love that. But one of the legacies of racism is convincing us that we are a monolith. And the reality is that when the young lady asks about BET, it kind of goes back to this, well, because we're a monolith, we need one platform to represent everything we do. Yeah. I used to work with a lot of very young African entrepreneurs, and they would always say, I want to build the Netflix of Africa. I want to build the Spotify of Africa. And I'm like, just build the Spotify competitor and just do African music or African content better on that platform than Spotify can. Yeah. You don't have to build the African Spotify because you're limiting your TAM.
You just said something so powerful, though. I know I don't give you compliments enough. But I want to underline that because I think that is so easy to do, say I want to build the Netflix of Africa. But I love what you just said about building the competitor to Netflix, right? It changes the perspective on what it is that you're trying to do. We're not trying to be friends. I'm trying to take your shit.
That's right.
That's right.
See, doesn't that speak to the fact that we also put ourselves in cages?
Look,
why you gotta build the Spotify in Africa? You know what I'm saying? Like, part of the legacy of slavery is the fact that, I mean, just imperialism, colonialism, all of those things are working hand in hand to tell us that we're smaller than we are. Yeah. So small is thinking you have to build the Spotify that already exists just for Africa, as opposed to saying, I'm going to transform the industry.
Into the competitor.
I will compete with you and come for your neck.
I'm going to go head to head with you.
Yes.
And you know, I'll say another thing. Even Calendly, exactly. Talk about Tawodi, right? He just built a calendar platform, a meeting platform. What I also want to see, if there are any filmmakers and storytellers in the audience, I want to see what we imagine the future with us defining the future looks like, right? A lot of the technological innovations we see today are kids that grew up on science fiction films trying to realize that imagination that was planted in them when they were younger.
Come on.
For us, what does the future look like? We're very consumed with the past and the present, which is great, but we really need to start thinking about what does the future look like with us in it? I want to know who the young black Elon Musks are. I want to know who they are.
Why do they got to be Elon Musk?
Hey,
Justina's Elon Musk.
Justina, come on and give it to us.
The competitor to Elon.
Madam, give it to us one more time.
In fact,
drag us,
the competitor to Elon. The one who's going to go head to head.
I think that sometimes we have the thought, but we got to apply it to ourselves. It's very, what do they say when you point one finger, there are three pointing back at you? Ooh. And so I think it's great. We have to evaluate how we've been indoctrinated, right? How does imperialism, colonialism, all the isms, how do they affect us and how we see ourselves and how we operate in the world? I want to be me and the best version of me. I'm not trying to be anybody
Hell
else.
yeah.
And I wish that for everybody here. Be the best version of yourself. You don't need to be Bose or Luvvie or Abiola. Those roles are already taken.
Done.
Be the best version of yourself.
Yeah. No, I want those little white boys to say they want to be the next Bose.
Hey.
Fuck out of here. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to be like, yeah. I want them to say it.
I mean, I support that. I think they should.
In fact.
But they couldn't be the next Boats because the cargo shorts and there's the lack of flavor. It's just
how
not
could
giving.
how could they pull this
It's
off?
not giving.
In
okay?
fact, it's not giving.
I'm trying to.
I think we're close on time, though, Abiola.
Are we closing on time?
We're closing on time, I think. But I know someone in the audience has a question that they want to ask.
Hi.
Hi guys, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being on this panel. It's so inspirational. I'm personally really inspired right now. And it's actually kind of fitting that I'm asking this question at the closing of time because you guys all got to where you are, you know, through the power of showing something to someone that doesn't exist yet, right? So I'm curious to see if you guys could share any advice, you know, because like that's what we're called upon to do all the time as Black people, and even more specifically in advertising and media, you know. I am thinking about a conversation I had last week. I'm constantly advocating for hiring more Black women creative directors because I believe Black women are like one of the most creative people in the world. Yep. And people are like, but where? Where are they? And I'm like, they're everywhere. Walking right, we're right here. So I want you guys to share any advice you guys have of, you know, convincing people of things to believe in things that don't exist yet. Does that, you guys are getting what I'm getting at?
I'll start. The art of convincing is to convince yourself. If you don't believe that you're the best, you're not going to evoke that you're the best in the room. And it starts with like, I don't believe that there can be any other version of me than the version that I bring to the table. And the version that I bring is especially special. And I use this adage always, or this thing that my mother taught me, is that all fingers are not equal, but they each serve a purpose. The pinky can't do what the thumb does. The thumb can't do what the middle finger does. The middle finger can't do what the ring finger does. And so to that end, you have to be you and do what you do because nobody else can do that. And I think that the idea of convincing is a slippery slope for me. It's either you're going to get it or you're not. And sometimes they're not. But let that motivate you because they will eventually. And those will be, look, because you shall be the head and not the tail. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like you got to be confident that if they don't get it, they will get it.
Yeah. And I don't believe people invest in ideas. They invest in people. So my tactic over the years is no matter what it is that I want to do, whatever idea I have, if they trust in me, the person of integrity and excellence consistently, they will bet on me because I am not a risky bet. So that's how I approach any room, whether I'm pitching a new book to my publishers when they're like, hey, what's the next idea? And I'm like, listen, it's a half-assed idea. I'm not sure. They go, yes. They might not say yes to somebody who has an amazing idea because they don't believe in them. But me with a half idea, but because they believe in me, they say yes. So if you want to get more yeses, be somebody who is not a risky bet. Know that when you show up in the room, you're going to kill it. You're going to over-deliver on your promise. So whenever somebody says, yes, I will make that phone call for you for that job, yes, you can do this random project that you want, they're really betting on you, the person. So how are you showing up and making sure you're vouchable and reliable so you are never a risky bet?
Now, you are in one of the most amazing places in the world with some of the most amazing people doing the most amazing things. What I'm saying is meet as many people as possible. Meet people before you need anything or can offer any value to them. And the thing to think about when you meet people is always keep in mind, what problem can I solve? Everyone at every level has a problem that they're trying to solve. And if you can be the bridge between getting their problem solved in some capacity, you're going to win every time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bring us home, Bose.
Oh, bring us home. Go to Ghana.
And then eat Naija jollof after.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very
everyone.
much,
Thank you
Thank
so
y'all.
much.
gotta get photos.